We all know that one of the best ways to make your system look custom is to add lighting. And we know that one of the most expensive ways to do that is to get RGB fans. So what happens when you order some of the cheapest RGB fans that you could possibly buy on Amazon? Well, you do a review about it. That's what you do. Today we're going to look at the easy DIY fab fans. Looking for a new PC or PC hardware? Then today's sponsor, Micro Center, is guaranteed to have what you need. Micro Center's huge selection of hardware and devices, along with their industry-leading prices, mean you get more for your money this holiday season. With Build Your Own, Micro Center carries the latest in PC tech from all major brands, while passionate, knowledgeable sales staff are available to assist you with your next build. Not comfortable building it yourself? Then certified in-store technicians can build it for you in as little as the same day. To see all that Micro Center has to offer and to find the store closest to you, click the sponsor link in the description below. So this is what you get right here, is a pretty basic black box. I ordered 2 sets of them because, look, I don't even want to tell you what the price is, because I kind of want you guys to go into the description and look for yourself, because 1, I did buy them off Amazon and there is an affiliate link there, and 2, prices seem to change when we do reviews. It's weird. We did a review of the Deep Cool, or the Land Cool 2 case for only 89 bucks, and then suddenly like the price went up to like 130. So anyway, just a basic black box, which you might expect from a company that's they're probably making fans for someone out there. And this is obviously a China brand that is like probably an OEM or an ODM for something else, which means they're making fans and they're like, well, we're gonna take the design and make our own, which happens all over the place. And something else on the back too is it does say right here that please test it first. If anything's wrong, contact us. You can get our information also by using the QR code. So that's kind of nice to have on the box at least. It says specifically to email them or contact them on Amazon or Facebook. So they don't even have like a direct, wow. Get a manual. So this is a 5 set. There's 5 fans in here, even though it shows 3 on here, but it comes with a 10 fan control box that also plugs into SATA and also has ARGB, which works with Mystic Light and Aura, which are the 3-pin ARGB headers. It does not work with your standard 12-volt 4 pins. It doesn't work with your 3-pin Phanteks or Gigabyte headers. It shows you right here on the manual. But it also comes with a remote control. And what's cool about that is if you're doing a basic type of build and you're not running with one of these high-end motherboards with RGB built in and ARGB headers and such, then you can still have your modes and your lights controlled by this remote control. You can also control fan speed this way. So that's kind of nice because you can simply turn it up and turn it down with your remote control and not have to worry about setting up any custom fan profiles if you don't want to. Here is what's in the box. The first thing I'm gonna say is that these fans are built way beefier than, for a second there I was like, they only gave me 4, but there's one in my hand. They're built way beefier than I was expecting. I don't know what kind of plastic it is, but they do have a very Corsair look, if you will. Like these look like the same corners you'd find on a Corsair fan. They are rubber padded, so that's gonna help with vibrations. Once again, it says how many volts it is, but it does not tell me what RPM. I could not find any information on the website about the static pressure. The only thing I could tell you right now is that it is a dynamic fluid bearing. Let me kind of explain this a little bit before we move on to the actual testing of this. Hydraulic bearings basically mean that the impeller or fan blade shaft that goes into the motor has a layer of fluid around it to keep it from touching the sides, keep it centered, and give it something slick to rotate on. The other types of bearings that you're going to find out there are ball bearing, which are pretty self-explanatory. There's a whole ring of balls that the shaft goes down the middle of, and then those balls rotate, which give it a nice smooth, and they're oiled, obviously, but it gives it a nice smooth surface to rotate on. Shut up, Phil. There's a sleeve bearing, which is basically the same type of thing as a ball bearing, only it's a longer, more of a cylindrical sleeve that's doing the gap filling. The Rolls-Royce type of bearing that you'll find out there, specifically with some of the like Corsair fans, which is the maglev, which uses magnets to levitate, or their maglev is what they're referred to as, to levitate the fan hub from basically touching anything through magnetism. Some hydraulic bearing fans will have a lot of slop and movement. This seems to be pretty normal. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's moving in and out too much. That's pretty appropriate there. If I grab one of these fans over here, this is actually one of the Corsair maglev fans. Okay, so it's maybe half. But that makes sense too, because the tolerances are a lot tighter with magnets than they're going to be with the fluid bearing, because you actually had to have some thickness of fluid in there to do its job. The other thing that's a little bit of a drawback of this is the fact that they are using a proprietary connector. So the RGB and the fan power and the PWM and all that are, and I don't even know if they're PWM controlled. We'll have to see. I don't think they are. You have to use their control box. So what you're going to kind of deal with here is potential points of failure. If this box goes bad, your up to 10 fans connected to it will also not work. Fortunately though, if you do like I did with how inexpensive these are, you buy 2 sets, so you have spare fans and spare controller, or just outfit as many fans as you can in your system. So it's got up to 10 fans, and then this is LED 1 and LED 2, because this particular brand does also sell RGB strips. So you can add 2 RGB strips to this and 10 fans. And it connects to your system only through the ARGB header, which is right here. That does not have to be used, because like I said, we have the remote control. And then it's got SATA power. At least it's got SATA. Some of these brands are still using Molex, which is really stupid. But as you can see, there's no way to actually connect these fans to your motherboard for PWM or software control. So that's kind of some of the trade-off that you get by going with a super inexpensive brand like this to get your RGB and 5 fans and a controller, is you give up any sort of software control. So the only way you're gonna be able to control these is through the remote control. Anyway, we need to go ahead and get these kind of set up. We need to come up with some sort of a flow test here to check. I do not have any idea what these RPMs are, and it doesn't matter if I hooked it up to a computer to see what the RPM readout says, because you can't, because it just showed you that. So as we move into this, remember, there is no information whatsoever regarding CFM, RPM, static pressure, none of that. I can tell you the blades look like they're kind of a mixture of airflow and static pressure. We will be sticking them onto a radiator as well to see how well they can move air through a rad. This is one of the visual tests I always do with fans. It's just a piece of paper. What I do is I bend it back and forth a whole bunch so it can freely hinge, and then just push it down so it sits straight. And I'm doing it right across the middle of the hub, not the highest static pressure, which would be right here on the side. I kind of want to see how it handles it right here. We know that they're going to, well, Jay, you're an idiot because it goes out this side of the fan. So let's go ahead and move that around to the right side of the fan, where the exhaust actually is. Phil has an idea though of something we're going to try and do to figure out what the RPM is at max, because he has a sound tuner that will listen to the frequency of something. So we're going to stick the piece of paper in so it goes like, like that, because I'm having a stroke apparently. And then his app will actually tell him how many times per minute it's doing that, and then we will do the math to figure out what that is in RPM for the fan.
Or per second, but
or per second, and then we can times that by 60 to find out per minute, right? So we're plugged into SATA, nothing's plugged into the RGB. I think we probably have to pull out a little battery thing. Please tell me it came with a battery. Oh, there it is right there. So you gotta pull that out, which now makes the battery have contact. So white actually looks white. So one of the things I've dealt with on cheap RGB, like lights and strips and stuff I've tried before from some of the China brands, like you get on Amazon for like a floor light and stuff, is white will sometimes look green, it'll sometimes look blue because there's an imbalance of the three LEDs. That looks pretty white. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, it was white on camera.
Dude, it's so bright. All right, so Phil's colorblind. This isn't fair to him.
This is terrible.
That and that are the exact same color, and then that is slightly gold, and then that's orange, and that's red. There are literally 2.
Are they
Okay, no, it is changing like
So one's
a
orange.
single shade. That's more of like a neon-y yellow. That's more of a golden yellow. That's gold. That's orange. That's really red. Dude, that's still a lot of air coming through there. Okay, we saw how much the flow changed, right? Okay, here comes push-pull.
Oh, wow.
You get all the pressure back, and there's no noise. Is that any indication of just how much wind there is? Watch. The thing is, with how inexpensive these are, you could do push-pull and still have a fan left over for your rear, and then grab another set for the rest of your system, and all those fans would plug into your control box, and then you have a spare control box because you can do 10 on one. Okay, so one of the things we did, which is super unscientific, but gave us some sort of an idea of what the RPMs are going, I took the paper, I folded over a bunch, and then I held it right against the edge of the hub. Phil's got his, what is it, the Omni tuner?
About 190. 195. 195 divided by how many blades?
9.
9. So that's 21 RPS times 60. About 1,300 RPM.
So I was guessing around 12. Not bad, because I was torn between 12 and 15. So being 13 actually makes a whole lot of sense. So it's about a 1,300 RPM with no resistance. Now let's talk about whether or not you should buy these. Obviously the bearing design. Let's talk about hydraulic bearing for a second. Hydraulic bearing is extremely susceptible to dust and dirt. So if you're not running them filtered, and over time dust and dirt make their way into the hub, it'll gum it up, the fan will slow down, the bearing will start to seize, and you'll get the fan starting to move around and clank and make all sorts of funky noise. The other thing is that hydraulic bearings don't like being mounted like this as much as they like being mounted horizontal. Doesn't matter if it's up or down, just this keeps things nice and even for the bearing. When you set it like this, you get a little bit more tension on the bottom than you do on the top. And so what'll happen is over time, it could wear the seal slightly and you could end up losing your hydraulic fluid. That's the number one failure of hydraulic bearing fans is hydraulic fluid leakage. Also, any way that dust can get in there, causing a gap like this or having it have a little bit more tension on one side than the other. Now, in terms of side-to-side play, there is none in this. And this isn't something that's gonna happen right away. This would be if you leave your computer on 24/7, every day. After a couple of years, you might notice there's a little bit more play in that. And so I'm not talking about in and out, I'm talking about up and down. If you know anything about wheel bearings in cars, it's kind of the same thing. So any way that dust can start to get in there would start to wear down the bearing. Now it says it has 30,000 hours of rated life. Now if you understand how rating works, they would take, let's say 100 of these fans and they put them in a room and they test them. And then they measure at what point 50% of them have failed. At that time frame is what they then consider to be the expected life expectancy. Some may make it 60,000 hours. Some may have failed at 20,000 hours. But at 30,000 hours is what they rated specifically when 50% of the test subjects failed. So that's how they come up to, it's the same way with light bulbs. It's the way they do their actual testing or their rating. I don't think that's something that should keep you from buying a hydraulic bearing fan. Hydraulic bearing fans can actually be serviced and they can be refilled, but it's something I've never actually tried because they're usually cheap enough to where it's easier just to buy new ones. If you made it this long into the video, I'll go ahead and spoil it by saying the set of 5 costs $35 on Amazon. There is a link down below. It is my affiliate link, so there will be a little bit kickback to the channel if you guys check them out. I bought 2 sets, or $70 is $29.99 less than what 3 maglev fans cost from Corsair. It also has a controller built in, or that comes with it. And if you bought 2 like this, like I said, you can control all 10 fans off a single controller and have a spare controller if something were to fail. What about the controller longevity and lifespan? I can't tell you. I can tell you that I have been running cheap LED strips and such in my home behind TVs and stuff for years that use these same, they're a little bit larger, but these same super cheap and flimsy remote controls. I can also tell you they almost all use the same frequency too. So if you got a remote control from this guy as a spare, it would work with this one. It's not like they're separate frequencies for whatever tuner they're with. I could take that remote control out and use that one. But if you built a basic system and you want to spice it up and you want to get what appears to be decent airflow, especially push-pull through a 30 mil radiator, for 35 bucks for 5 fans, that makes them $7 a fan if the controller's free. Let's call them $6 a fan and the controller costs $5. That is a bargain. So the thing about this company, Easy DIY, they didn't sponsor any of this, but they do have other types of fans. So I went with the center hub, where the LEDs are in the center, very similar to the Fractal Design ones that I tried to take out for the Star Wars build and I mutilated and destroyed. So they illuminate on this kind of a translucent white, so it's not solid white, it's like a clearish plastic, if you will. So you saw how the blades actually illuminated. They looked really, really good. But the black housing or the smoked housing on the side and the rubber standoffs make them extremely quiet. When you mount them to things, the motor, as you heard, had a slight hum to it, but it wasn't something intrusive. I had to stick my face down to it in an open platform laying on the table, so some of that sound was being reverberated through the wood, making it actually louder and amplified. If you actually had these mounted in a case and they were closed, the case was closed, you would never hear these fans. For the price, I think it's worth the risk, especially if you're running basic case fans that came with your case and you're not running a motherboard that has RGB control. You can do that and you can get a really dope effect without having to spend an awful lot of money. The other thing is the downside of them being specifically controlled by their own controller. You can't plug these into the motherboard. The ARGB right here is gonna control itself, obviously, through any header, where Asus Aura and Mystic Light that use the 3-pin with the 1 space there. We didn't test it today because, quite honestly, this to me is for the person that is not running a motherboard with RGB on it. And it has expandability for 2 strips. And some of the sets they sell actually come with the 2 strips, and it's like $42. And you get 2 RGB strips with it that I think they were 30 centimeters long. So yeah, if you guys wanna give these a shot, the link is down in the description below. These were made pretty recent too, January 6, 2020. So they're not like they've even been sitting around in warehouses for very long. If you're using these and you've used them for any length of time and you're watching this going, oh yeah, I use those fans, they're great. Or I use those fans, they suck. Sound off in the comments below and let people know what your use experience has been like with these. The Amazon reviews were fairly positive, but some very scathing negatives as well. So far in just our test environment, they all worked, the controller worked. We didn't test every single port. I guess I could do that real quick and report back. The other thing to consider too is gonna be some of the quality regarding the actual hub design. So what I talked about is gaps and over time dust working its way in. If I spin this fan, and Phil's gonna have to try and get in there, you'll see the blades do have a wobble to them. So that means they're not perfectly balanced. And that's something that's kind of expected, one, with fluid bearing, because there's a little bit of play in the fluid, a little bit of compressibility, and 2, just the overall quality of the parts being used at this price point. They're not going to be the quality of a $20, $30 fan. But it didn't vibrate, and right now with them running, the most annoying thing is that there's an inconsistency regarding the centering of the sticker, so some look like they're smooth like that one, and that one's like wobbling all over the place. But when they're turning, the fans do look pretty balanced. So just something to talk about. At 35 bucks for a set of 5, I think it's really difficult to get super picky with it. Anyway, I saw these when I was scrolling through Amazon for something completely unrelated, and I went, I need to try those. But for the price I went, knowing my luck, I might get a bad set, so I ordered 2. Now we're gonna put them in a build because, how about the super ultra budget RGB build? I know some of you want to smack me right now, that's fine. I want to smack me too. All right guys, thanks for watching. Link in the description below if you guys want to learn more about these fans or give them a shot. Thanks for watching, we'll see you in the next one.